Ready to roll. Welcome, everybody, to Planetary Gig Talk Live. I'm your host, Jefferson Glassie, Chief Spiritual Dude of the Planetary Gigs Society, whose mission is bringing unity through music, but as I like to say more specifically, making connections through music with the intention of bringing peace. We're having this conversation today and on perspectives on race and music, and I'm really excited about this panel of amazing musicians and very thoughtful and smart people to tackle kind of a very interesting and broad topic. The Planetary Gig Talk podcast that I've been doing for the last couple of years have touched on a number of topics about music and other things, music and shamanism, music and Tai Chi, music and quantum physics, music and nature, music and the spheres. And actually it was something that Tara Gorman, the goddess of awesomeness, co-founder of Planetary Gigs Society, said to me that Lionel Cole had done a interview in Australia on race and music. And I thought, wow, that's a great conversation to have. And so I'm so happy that we have these wonderful, amazing people to be able to talk with us today. So I'd like to introduce our panel, and let me mention also that the people in the Zoom room here are on non-video so that we can focus on the panel. Maybe Liz Lulu is our producer. Maybe she can give us a little look of the whole panel here right now. First up, a great friend, a longtime friend, who was with the amazing group Sapphire and the Uppity Blues Women for several decades. She is a force of nature. She inspires me all the time. She's a griot. Every Saturday afternoon, you can check out her Half Lit and Talking Schmack, some entertainment and education. Gaye Adegbalola, thank you so much, Gaye, for being with us.
I'm delighted, Jeff. Thank you.
It's always so good to see you. And I don't think we have Lionel Cole on. He's in Australia, and maybe he will be able to pop on. He could be having technical difficulties, not sure. It's about 2 o'clock in the morning there, so we'll give him a little bit of leeway. Next up, I was introduced to next guest by our mutual friend, Christina Llewellyn, who is a barbershop harmony singer. And she and Shana were together and won a competition doing female barbershop harmony. And I participated in a program that Shana and her group, Halo, her all-black female barbershop harmony quartet, conducts, called #Race and Real Talk. We'll hear more about that, but it's sort of a way to use the concepts of barbershop harmony singing to have conversations about race and racial relations. Shana, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, Jeff. Thanks for having me. Really glad to be here.
Oh, thank you. It's great to see you. That was a great program. And finally, batting cleanup, I guess, as you say, amazing musician, author of a book, It All Matters, very prolific writer, thinker, inspiring person. He's been with the Steve Miller Band for, I thought it was 24 years, but I think I heard him say 27. So, Mr. Joseph Wooten, how are you doing? Thanks so much.
I'm doing very well, thank you. I'm happy to be here.
And I guess it's happy birthday to Victor today, right?
Yeah, my little brother Victor is, what is he? Victor's 56. September 11th, 1964.
Wow.
How about that?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, everybody go on mute there. So let me turn to Gaye first, if you don't mind. Gaye, I appreciate, when I first mentioned this to you, you said that's a big topic.
Yeah, you said race and music. It was like, what? Yeah, how much time you got, Jeff? That's what I said. Yeah.
But you know, I know that you have perspectives on this. You were an activist as a young woman. You're still an activist. You're out there really trying to make the world a better place for everybody all the time. And I know you do have some perspectives on music. So would love to hear anything that you have to say.
Well, I'm a blues woman, and a lot of people don't even know that blues is a music of liberation. And it's not a sad music, it's music to get the pain out, whether it's about shaking your ass on Saturday night or whether it's letting out a cry to know that you're not alone. And so that's my realm, and I often try to find humor in the pain. In the blues world, however, it's getting whiter and whiter and whiter. And so there's a big discussion on if, in fact, people can take this music and use it and deny its source, or at least don't relate to where the source of the music comes from and what it's about. So that's one race issue around blues in particular. And then of course the response is, well, if Leontine Price can sing Italian, then white folks can sing blues. But that's not what I'm talking about. Sure, everybody can do anything they want to damn well do. That's the nature of America, if you will. But it's whether our music is being co-opted and whether we are losing the beauty of the music. Now, everything evolves. So I know we got a jazz musician in the house, and we have other aspects here to talk about. But that's just one thing in my realm that I would like to put on the table. So is that what you mean, Jeff? Is that what you want to, I'm not sure what you're wanting, but that's a racial perspective.
Well, just to hear what your perspectives are about race and music. I mean, obviously, music it's powerful. It heals us. It changes us, as you say. It gets everyone up and jumping. But how do we use that power to help have the conversations, or to help heal the wounds about race, or what effects have racism had on musicians? Thoughts about that?
Oh, well, just to start with, I think you have to look at the nature of the production of the music. And I guess it's just like in a restaurant, you control your clientele based on the music you play in your restaurant. And I think that the production of music, the power of the production, in a lot of cases, Black musicians have been ripped off over the years because they have not had the means of production. And maybe that's our fault, or maybe it's society's fault. But that would be a perspective that I would look into if, while we're pursuing this topic. I think that the nature of the music is still pure, is still pure. And there are a lot of people that are maintaining that tradition. I try to, with my music, use traditional blues forms with contemporary messages. And that's what I bring to the table. Yeah.
Okay, so let me. Lionel, is Lionel Cole in the house? I thought I saw that he may be here.
I am here.
Woohoo!
Sorry, you guys. It's 3 a.m. here. I was a few seconds short, so forgive me for showing up a bit late.
No problem. Let me just introduce you. We met through our mutual friend, the goddess of awesomeness, Tara Gorman.
Goddess of awesomeness, for sure.
Yeah, and you really grew up in maybe one of the musical families of the 20th century, and you are a musician, an outstanding musician in your own right. You toured with, I think, Mariah Carey. You played with John Legend and many other musicians. And you're just a really wonderful, sensitive person. And as I mentioned,
I love you too.
as I mentioned, thank you. As I mentioned earlier, it was you had this podcast or an interview that I watched from Australia on race and music, and it was quite a long, extensive conversation, and that was sort of the trigger for me wanting to have this conversation, and just wondering if you might be able to share with us some of the perspectives, perhaps from that conversation or from your um, just anything that you'd like to talk about to, you know, add on to this
Talk about it.
conversation that hopefully will be helpful.
Yeah, man, I'd love to share with you guys. The vibe for Australia, which is very interesting, is that there's always a strata, it seems, between the swarthy folk, all of us, and artists, of course, too. But in Australia, it's quite interesting because there's an underclass of Aboriginal Australians who are dark, and they have their own, set of indigenous music and also things that reach into the blues and gospel, the cross-cultural kind of transference that's there. And then there's an African, a straight up African influence here, which kind of, if we look at it in American terms, there's like the dark black, there's the mulatto, and then there's the light, and there's always this weird kind of stratification in the American system. Here, it's more like there's the Aboriginal, the African, and then the African American. And in Australia, it's kind of looked on as a little bit of stardom. It's a little bit of kind of a pass, like which is kind of strange, especially coming from America and having a look at it. But what you see looking at it all is there's basically the way business works is that ethnic music out here drives business everywhere, in the bars, in the clubs, in the discos. Because I think the westernization of music has really become the westernization of music that comes from the great diaspora as it relates to America: blues, jazz, rock and roll, soul, and of course now urban music, which encompasses all the rap and all of that. And I find it really interesting that here there are many real students of that music. They really, really love it. They really study the licks and inflections, but missing the American experience of, let's see, a little more confronting life becomes the real difference in understanding the cultural significance.
Right. I think that's what I was trying to say earlier about so many white folks playing blues now. Something's missing. And it's that cultural experience that you mentioned.
It seems like it. Like, although I think it's because and this is just me, but I think it's because we all sort of stratify our experience instead of making it more the same.
Right.
Like my favorite Maya Angelou quote is, we hope that we find we are more alike than we are unalike. Mm-hmm. And I think because, the extreme kind of tactile version of pain that, all of us kind of went through in America is it's different when you look at it from the helicopter than, I wish I could be a movie star kind of pain, right? But I do believe pain is pain. And as these younger folks, white and otherwise, start to not hold on to their experience as much and really follow the music, I think that's where you get an authenticity, like Stevie Ray Vaughan level authenticity, Joe Bonamassa authenticity. There's all sorts of people that really reach into it, but I think there has to be a certain type of letting go, and there also has to be a certain type of those of us who've gone through things easing the barrier, because the world is turning light brown no matter what we do. So we really need to encourage all our brothers and sisters, of every dimension, color, and genre of likes and dislikes, to explore their own pain, so that when they sing the blues, there's an authentic portion. They're not just mimicking what they've heard, they're really expressing from their depth of pain, because I think that's what it's about, or their depth of joy, or their depths of understanding, not trying to to somehow be, you know, Prince or somehow be BB King when that's not their experience. You know, the authenticity is, I think, the thing that's missing because people aren't really digging into their own stuff. You know, they're trying to project something that they haven't gone through. I mean, and that's on us to try to encourage them to do that more, you know, and encourage ourselves to be more vulnerable in the same way.
You know, from my perspective, I came to music late, and it was the blues. It was blues harp. I went to Blues Week. That's where I met Gaye, and you know, there are times it felt like, oh man, I love this music. I just want to play, but it also did feel like there's a disconnect. And so I think now I'm a little more focused on just what I really want to play.
Mm-hmm.
But let me also now
Your truth, right? It's about your truth, you know.
Your personal truth. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
yeah. So
Which is beautiful, by the way, you know, which is worthy, by the way. You know, there's I don't think any kind of melanin makes anybody more worthy to sing the blues. It's just being able to be brave enough to put your spirit out there.
Right.
yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So can I ask Shana now to jump in? Shana has an amazing program, and even the history of barbershop music is quite relevant. You know, I was talking with somebody about barbershop harmony the other day, and he said, "That's such white music." Well, come to find out, no, it was really, you know, black music first. And the reason that Shauna was in Harmony Inc. and doing the competition is because they had some issues way back when with Sweet Adelines. So, Shauna, do you mind introducing folks a little bit to that music and your concepts of race and real talk?
Sure. And I'll start with I was really vibing, and what Ms. Gaye was sharing was resonating with me in terms of, because there's so many perspectives, but yes, the connection between race, racism, and music, and particularly in the United States, this historical pattern of appropriation that has been part of a systematic process that continues to marginalize people of color, African Americans in this regard specifically, uh, from benefiting as fully from the contributions that we have made to this culture in our music and artwork, etc., by this uh, tendency to prefer these expressions of art and music when it's done so through a white performer. And this is true of the blues. It's also true of barbershop. It has a different kind of a context for that history. Specifically that, yes, barbershop music is rooted in African American traditions of music making, improvisatory harmonizing, where you have it's in 4-part harmony. There's a voice that's sung above the melody, and then 2 voice parts harmonizing below. And the beauty and the style is in, you know, kind of cracking chords and finding new, tense, juicy harmonies like through familiar songs. And it started out as a simpler art form, and then developed in its complexity as music tends to do. Sort of in parallel with jazz. And then what happened was it was appropriated and co-opted for minstrel shows by white performers in blackface, and they would be imitating and mocking slaves and sharecroppers and that sort of thing, and depicting this you know, lazy Negro kind of caricature. And what they ended up finding was, well, this actually is good music, and they continued to perform it, and they established what is now called the Barbershop Harmony Society, and was first called, it's SBSCUSA is the long acronym for it, and I never have been able to get my tongue around all of the words that those letters stand for. But initially, this organization was one that excluded the participation of Black people specifically, not just people of color, Black people. African Americans were not allowed to participate. And this was also true of Sweet Adelines International when they were established in, I can't remember when let's see, they just had their 75th anniversary, so do the math. Back then, Black people were not participated. It was for white men and white women of good moral character. And this was a particularly big thing and started the conversation around the problems with that, people having problems with that, when in 1941, there was a group called the Red Caps, the Grand Central Red Caps, who won a regional contest in New York, but were prohibited from participating in the national competition because they were Black. And there were some people who did not care for that, and a lot of people who were like, well, you know, kind of a rules is rules thing, and that's just not how things are done. And similar practices with Sweet Adelines. There was a woman who was of mixed race in a chorus out of Canada. Her name was Lionel Cole. And the Sweet Adelines chorus, I guess when they discovered that she was of color, they said, well, she can't be a member. And then there were people who I guess were connected to her, said, well, why not? And said, well, say it's here is for white women of good moral character, and rules is rules. So there were a group of women who said, well, why do the rules have to be rules? Why can't we vote on it? And I said, well, that's just not how we do things. These are the rules of their bylaws, and these are how things are done. And a group of women in a living room said, well, I don't like that. I want to be able to make and change. We should be able to vote on these rules. And that's how Harmony Incorporated was established. So that's a history of explicit practices of exclusion combined with traditions of appropriation of African American music. And now, of course, you know, many decades beyond these practices and overtly racist attitudes, the social landscape of the barbershop community is still predominantly white, even as it is an international organization. All of them are, Barbershop Harmony Society in particular, but the population is still predominantly white. And much like, and I'll get into race and real talk from here, this is kind of where we started digging into this vision of a metaphor as Halo Quartet. This is because of the residues of these explicit practices of racism and segregation and exclusion that we still have these problems today, even though collectively, for the most part, there is a desire to diversify and to have inclusion, but that's difficult to actualize when you have this past still at the roots of things. And in 2015, Halo Quartet, we were the first quartet of African-American singers to perform on any of the national, international competition stages of any of these barbershop organizations. This is 2015. This is, so think from 1941 with the Grand Central Red Caps who won their contest, were not able to compete in the national contest. And then it took that long for another group of Black singers to come through. And we were thinking about this history in the context. We were like, you know, this kind of looks a lot like America. Where there's a desire to society, at least for most people on a superficial level, not necessarily knowing all of what that means, but because of the residues of the institution of slavery, through Jim Crow laws, through the more covert practices of systemic racism that are manifest today in our society, we can't achieve what we desire in terms of wanting to fulfill our values as, you know, liberty and justice for all, unity, freedom, equality, etc. And so we were thinking, well, you know, maybe this means that the music can like teach America something about itself. And then we started to look more into the music. And this is kind of where I was starting to vibe with you, Mr. Cole, about, you know, this idea that, you know, everybody has their individual experiences and their personal truths. But in order to transcend these boundaries that separate us through racism and in music and other areas of society, there has to be a certain willingness to let go of an egocentric experience of that that individual lived reality, and witness and find us the beauty and the commonality of what he shares in their individual ways. And so similarly with the Race and Real Talk thing, you know, our sort of slogan for this program is embrace the tension, sing the truth. And where we look at it's like, well, if the tension and leaning into those tense harmonies of the chords in barbershop before releasing into a resolved chord, if that's like where we find the beauty in the music, maybe that's where we can find beauty in conversations about racism. If we can intentionally lean into the tension. And then we started exploring, well, how does it work when you do it in music? And then we said, oh, we could do that in our dialogues as well. And so I'm a music therapist. My sister is a social worker and she sings baritone with a quartet. And so we lead this from our clinical perspectives in different workshops as well as extended program series with which Jeff participated in with us last fall. Engaging people in the singing experience of barbershop music and using that as a framework to scaffold these perspectives and conversations so that they can be fruitful.
What was the sentence again? Embrace the tension and resolve the...
Embrace the tension, sing the truth.
Okay, what was that? But you had something with resolve. Resolve.
Oh, yes. When you lean into the tension,
mm-hmm.
of those tight or resolving to the more consonant chord, that's where you experience the beauty, not just getting right to the major chord right away. Okay. And so it's like, oh, well, if we can do that in our conversations, find
right.
beauty in that tension, maybe we could get somewhere.
Right, good.
Yeah, it's a really powerful program. I mean, I participated. It was about a 6-week long, I think. And, you know, we ended up doing a performance and all that. And I really, I thought the concepts were so good. So I think it was a good segue into Joseph, you know, you've been writing about this, you've been talking about it, and I know one of the things that you talk about when you discuss music is respect.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, given these things that you've heard today, but you know, what are your thoughts on all this? Because we're at a really critical time in many ways, and
there's a couple of things. There's a couple of things that I always think about. One is that music, what makes music great is that music takes things that don't relate and makes them relate. And that's what feels good about it. Like when I talk to young people, I'll like drop a chair and cough. I says like, those are two things that don't have anything to do with each other. But if I drop the chair and cough on the beat, drop, cough, drop, cough, drop, cough, drop, drop, cough. Now there are things because of rhythm that makes them relate. In music is great because all of these things that don't relate are brought into a way that makes them relate. And that relationship feels good to everybody because it feels good for us to get along. The thing to think about with race is that race is not, we think about race as a fact, but race is a construct. The fact that my skin is brown is a fact, but the fact that I'm classified as African American puts me in a place in a hierarchy. And race is a construct. Even like when we say white people, before they came to the United States, they were French, Welsh, German, Italian, Serbian, Croatian. Some of them used to fight in Europe, but they come here and they just sit at the top of the hierarchy. So race is a fact. I'm sorry, skin color is a fact, but race is a decision. Race is a decision, and in terms of what that racial hierarchy represents, of course, it affects us in music, because the last 401 years of this country, the first 357 years of those were just slavery and Jim Crow. I mean, we were slaves longer before the signing of the Constitution than we've been free after 1865. So in terms of how I see that we get out of it is by telling the truth. As I see it, in the circle of life, the only part in the circle of life that's connected to everybody is the center of the circle, and that's where the truth is, because all the movement is out here, but the center doesn't move. Even in a hurricane, there's birds flying in the center because it's calm, and that's where the truth is. And if we tell the truth, we can show people, we can show everybody a way out, because Black people we're the only ones that have been on every side of the occasion. It's it's hard sometimes to teach white people about history, because it's hard to tell the truth without a lot of them feeling guilty or feel like you're calling them a racist. But in music, you can say things, uh, and have them get it better than you can. Just like um, we were talking about the man in Kenosha, Wisconsin, with the bullets in his back, right? And of course, we were having a giant argument about the man with bullets in his back. And so eventually, you can never blame a man with bullets in his back. Things won't be the same for a man with bullets in his back. Everyone should know the name of a man with bullets in his back. How can it be more so that a man with ammunition in the back of his torso can't be seen as the criminal? It must be something dark and subliminal, where from behind you pull the trigger, and a man with bullets in his spine is seen as you know what I'm saying?
Woo!
So my
Come
point,
on now.
yes, but that's what music can do that conversation can't do.
Mhm.
I can have that same conversation and watch, especially white people's eyes glass over. Oh, here we go again. We're still talking about slavery. That was so long ago. But I can sing it and make you feel it. And that is the beauty of music. It's the power of music, and it's the duty of music to move culture along. Because everybody knows Beethoven, Bach, Brahms, Dizzy Gillespie, Miles. Everybody knows the great musicians. Nobody remembers who the president was when they were around. Nobody remembers who the king was when they were there. Music moves culture, and it's the duty, as I see it, it's the duty and the responsibility of people who have the ability to play music to move culture where it needs to go. Because we can sing and play and make people feel what is harder to make them feel if we just say it. I don't know if that answered the question or not, but.
It's a big question.
Yeah, just a conversation now. Liz, maybe we can go on gallery so everybody can jump in on this.
That was beautiful, by the way.
Oh,
Yes.
thank you. Thank you. I mean,
No, I mean, seriously, man.
When I play music, when we were growing up, so today's Victor's birthday, so I'll use a Victor quote. Victor says,
oh,
yeah, Victor's 56 years old today, September 11th. But Vic says,
mighty, mighty, mighty.
one of my favorite quotes from Victor, pieces of lyrics, he says, if you're going to talk politics, you got to talk about all of it. You can't leave nothing out.
True
And
talk.
that's, in my opinion, the beauty of music and the duty of music is to inspire people to be better and to educate people and to make the world better. Because my mom would see, like, I got musician brothers and everybody's 5 brothers, everybody's really talented. But my mom people would ask her, like, aren't you really proud of your boys? They're all so talented. And she would say, well, they've been doing it their whole lives. By now, they ought to be good at it. And that doesn't really, she said, that doesn't really, make me feel any way. But she says, but if you tell me they're inspiring, or if you tell me they've helped you in some way, that makes me proud, because that's the part that I worked on. So, when I was younger, I wanted to be, quote unquote, the best in the world and all of that. And at a certain point, I realized that I wanted to make the world better with what I was good at. So, I'm trying to write and inspire people and educate people. And I don't like to read, but I've been reading just so I can do that better. I just finished reading Isabel Wilkerson's book called Cast. I just read Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates. I read, I can't remember her name, but The New Jim Crow. I read it, and Brian Stevenson's Just Mercy, et cetera, because a lot of the beauty of this country, especially as it pertains to white people, a lot of them. I was having this discussion, and I'll promise not to take over the conversation, but I was having a discussion.
Beautiful, brother.
I was having a discussion with some white friends of mine about history and heritage, because you hear people say, you know, about like taking down Confederate statues, and they'll say, well, they're trying to take away our heritage. And I'm like, you got to understand the difference between history and heritage. History happened in the past, you can't change it. But heritage is what you value from the past that you're trying to take forward. So the fact that you think a Confederate statue is heritage is telling, because when a man gets shot 7 times in the back for a knife that he might have, and the kid too young to own a weapon that shot 3 and killed 2, walking towards the police, responding to shots fired, wearing the murder weapon, gets a chance to get in his car and drive home.
His mama drove him home.
Yes, his mama drove him home. But my point is, when a guy gets shot in the back 7 times for a knife that they think he has, it sounds like the heritage of the Confederacy is alive and well. Right? When you see black people getting shot running away, you can't say you're fearing for your life, but a police officer, the heritage of a police officer started from a slave catcher. Old habits die hard, right? They're running, they need to be shot. And so it's important for music to show people, to make people feel what's harder to make them feel when you say it.
I'd like to say, Mr. Wooten, that a couple of things occurred to me when you were talking about that. First, as you use the example of your song, Bullets in His Back, and, you know, the power, and from a perspective of a music therapist, right? One of what am I trying to say? The power of the influence of music in that regard. Everybody who's listening to this is probably going to have that, whatever they feel about it, they're going to hear bullets in his back, bullets in his back, if they don't, like, whether they want to or not. And that contributes, you know, to what you're saying about, like, you know, we don't remember the kings, we don't remember the presidents.
We remember what moved us.
There's a lot of things we don't remember, but the music lives on. It's an expression of narrative, right? Like it communicates shared experiences, shared values, and shared identities. And also, like, you know, when we think of, you know, these things about race and music, the branch offs of the associations that we have of this, like, this music is white and this music is black, or the fact that we've got different narratives attached to different genres of music, or even the same genres that got appropriated, that we're not oriented to the story that we share, particularly in this country, because we've got, so, and that, not to say that it's a bad thing, but the way race as the social construct that it is has kept people of different races separate from one another, and the development of the music existing in these different spheres and for different reasons, then that's part of where the narrative is just disconnected, and we're not aware of the different dimensions of systemic oppression that people of multiple races are experiencing, right? And the other thing that you said, and this connects to that, which is like, you know, I don't know if you said if you drop a cherry in a chair or a chair, what did you drop?
It was
a chair and a cough, right?
A chair and coffee.
A chair and a cough, and I turned it into a cherry. I was like, I don't think there was a cherry there. But you drop a chair. If you just do those two things, it's noise. But when you organize them rhythmically, then it turns into music. And that's what music is, right? Like, just like, you know, people like to say that music is universal, a universal language. Not really. Like, just like languages, it is universal that people communicate with the development of a specific language, right? And this is true also of music. You can't, you know, speak the same language just anywhere and somebody's going to understand, and the same thing goes for music. But so when but the commonality of what we can say, like, makes them all defined as music is that they are organized sound that are fundamentally social expressions and social experiences. And while it's true, yes, that we as music makers and performers, like, there is a certain kind of responsibility on us, like when we are contributing to this sphere of narrative and we're putting out these ideas, whether they're true or not, that's what gets internalized. And certainly what ends up in the mainstream is what gets accepted as like the dominant narrative, right? But so just the same, one of the things that we think of and how we apply this to our program, Race and Real Talk, like the community music therapy, if everybody is involved, instead of it being kind of this westernized paradigm where there's a performer and an audience, and this is different, right, from like even like church traditions and like Black people, like it's participatory. If you have more people of these different races and experiences participating in the music making and the creation and sharing of a narrative, the shared truth that we're actually living, how powerful is that too, right? And think what that will do when that lives on, when it's a story that everybody was telling together and listening to one another and one another's individual experiences, like Mr. Cole was saying, and seeing their connection as like the same thing. And then like the changes that we would be motivated to make, right? That's what I'm thinking of when you're sharing that.
No doubt. As I see it, music.
Well said.
That is very well said. I use another, like this here. That's not really recognizable, but these are all the notes of the national anthem. This is all the notes of the national anthem, but it ain't the song. Nobody's hand is over their heart, because it's not music until we intelligently use space. Music is is things with intelligently used space. That's the thing that takes a pile of notes and turns it into music. And it matters why we make the music. Are we making it to be famous, or are we making it to make the world better? And if you're doing it to make the world better, if the song is effective, it may only touch a couple of people, but who knows what those couple of people will do because they were moved by your music. It matters why we do this stuff. And too many of us are trying to be heard by more people. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I think art does a thing that the rest of the world can't do. Like we're the only ones that can make a person feel something and short circuit the process. We don't have to have a discussion. We don't have to have a panel. We don't have to get together and meet for somebody to feel just what you do, right? Music can make you feel it right away. And that's the reason why it's so powerful and so important. It was Victor that said, he said that we know what bombs will do. Bombs are like instant destruction. But the closest thing we have to a peace device is music, because music, it makes you feel it. And if you don't feel it, nobody gets hurt, right? The worst thing that can happen is that, like, that wasn't your song. But it's important for us to handle it right, because for the people that go through a struggle, they're really the only ones that can tell other people what it's like to be there and help everybody to undo it, right? Because for white people that have heard that 247 years of slavery is a dark chapter, you know what I mean? They're probably not going to help you out of something that they've minimized that much. It's like telling a woman that got raped, say, well, she had a bad day. You know what I mean? You're probably not going to help her get through it if you've minimized it that much. But she's probably the only one that can tell you fully what she's been through, right? She's probably the only one that can do it. So she's in a position, even though she's the aggrieved one, to help everybody to understand what it is so that it doesn't happen again. So musicians, especially, sure.
For both of you brilliant folks, or for everybody, I have this underlying feeling that like that kind of singular perspective, right, on something actually creates more distance from all of us. But by saying that it's not that we have to understand, especially with music or art in general, like the waveform, making the waveform of hopefulness or the waveform of sorrow or the waveform of, because like, I mean, no matter where you are, even with that cluster of chords, if someone went, we
Mm-hmm.
all know what that means. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter that it doesn't matter what the lyric is or it
Yeah.
could be it too. It could be anything. You can
Yeah.
say anything. You can make any verbal kind of linguistic cue, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the underlying intention is going to be pervasive, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I think sometimes like, and it's a question I want to bring up because we're talking about these kind of personal influence of music and all. I sort of think sometimes that everybody has that key to truly understand each other when the music's playing, whether it's a cluster or the amen, because the waveform is more to do with the intent than the knowledge, and that
Right.
intent leaves the possibility of growth and hope, right? And like, and that to me is where healing, knowledge, learning, and all that happens. And because I just wonder sometimes if we're so worried about what craft does, like craft to make
Yeah.
stardom or craft to make fans, as opposed to art, which is just expression of soul or whatever. Like if we're creating barriers that don't exist for people, when they're just going to hear the intent of I mean this,
Right.
or I wish I could reach out and touch your pain. Like sometimes I think that especially in music for me, just because it is so cooperative, it's everywhere. The listener is just as important as the player, right?
Yeah.
I just wonder if we spend more time thinking about how we feel about what they feel and trying to share that empathy, then we don't have to think so much about the social constructs that are really old, that don't even really fit us. And like all of us feel uncomfortable about it, but we don't know how to express it. But that gives us a chance to just to let that go and just be lost in intention. Because I wonder if we just focus on our intention, as you were saying, Mr. Wooten, like, if we really just focus on the intention, if we can't really step across the barriers of personal pain or personal tragedy or triumph, if it's really, if the step is
Connectivity.
actually
Yeah.
quite short. I'm just putting it out there. What does anybody think about that?
What do you think, Miss Gaye?
Yeah, Miss Gaye.
Well, I'm very much a wordsmith. And part of my, while I hear the sound and while I replicate a chord structure or whatever, part of my mission as a griot is to document history. And consequently, I use my words. I use my words, and I very carefully use my words. And some of them might speak. For example, after the beating in 1992, what's the fellow's name that got beat?
Rodney King.
King.
Yes, Rodney King. I wrote a song called "If It Had Been a Dog." They would have gone to jail. If it had been a dog, they would have gone to jail. But when they kick and beat a colored man, those madmen go unchained. So after George Floyd, it got
Beautiful, by the way.
airplay again. That was 20 years different. So now I did a song in 91 called Bitch with a Bad Attitude. And it's getting airplay for AOC. And thankfully—
I didn't know you knew me.
Okay, yeah. So anyway, because she speaks her mind, she is called a bitch. So changing definitions is part of the work that I have to do as a wordspeak within music, because like you said, I believe it was you, Mr. Wooten, who said that, it allows us to, it takes away the defenses because I put it in the context of a song, because I make it melodic, because I make it rhythmic, people will listen.
Right.
And then the words are probably memorized if I put the rhythm right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's part of what I try to do. I don't know, y'all too deep for me. I'm just basically about shaking my ass. Thank you very much. And when I teach like at Blues Week and places like that, yeah, come on. Bring it. What I try to teach everybody is just to be free enough,
right,
to move your body, to make a sound, and to enjoy life. And that's just about coming from a love thing. A couple of little things I just wanted to stick in when you were talking about the statues. I'm doing a workshop tomorrow on what after the protest. Mm-hmm. And part of what I'm talking about that got achieved is that these damn statues are coming down. Mm-hmm. And most people don't even, most white folks anyway, don't realize that these were basically put up in 1900s when Black folks first got the vote. And they were put up outside of courthouses to intimidate Black folks from going into the courthouse. So, you know, it's that kind of thing that we have to use music to take that down too. Mm-hmm. And, you know, yes, we got to remember Jacob Blake in music. And that'll be the way he'll be better remembered, you know. Mm-hmm. Thankfully, the athletes are doing a thing too. Yeah.
The main thing, as I said, is music can make people feel the right thing. Mm-hmm. When we're talking about it, we're evaluating things, and evaluation can get cumbersome, and it's easy to muddy the water with evaluation. But once music makes you feel it, nobody can get it out of there, right? Your favorite song, they could torture you till you died. You'd be in pain with that still being your favorite music, because music is the end goal without the process. It's the end goal without the process. If we can talk all day about Jacob Blake, and we have a possibility at the end of the day to maybe come to consensus. But if I sing you something about Jacob Blake that you feel, we've skipped the process. We've got the goal. We've short-circuited that whole painful process that may or may not work. And that's the power of music, the beauty and the duty, as I say. It's the reason why a politician gives a speech. What do? They play a song at the end of it, because the song can do what the speech couldn't do. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just heard a weird bing. I'm sorry, if I may, I actually, you know, with all due respect, one of the things I was trying to communicate before in terms of, you know, a thing that music definitely does, like, because it does have the power to incline people to listen because of the way the sound is organized, and our brains are wired to seek out patterns to make meaning of whatever it is we're experiencing. It is, however, not true that music will inevitably
that's the most important part.
make another person feel. Oh, if you think about, you know, you just gave the example of like a politician's speech, and the song that they play at the end, you know, of their speech or something, they're going to pick a very particular song, you know, like it's a particular ethos that is shared by a genre, a song title, et cetera, and so forth. You're playing Bullets in His Back, you know, anybody is going to be thinking those words for the rest of the day, but how people feel about them is going to vary. And some of those things, like, you know, not everything is a verbal process, but the point is that still music is not going to universally affect everybody in the same way, and music can cause harm.
Of course, yeah, I don't think I said that music is going to fix it right away.
But the music helps make it accessible.
Absolutely.
Yes,
and
true.
Yeah, music can make you feel what just words saying the same thing won't make you feel. Right? Music is feeling. And that's the beauty of art. Now, you know, obviously art doesn't solve it, you know, doesn't make racism go away because the song was good. But I've seen it at least in my own experience. I've been able to play to my friends that disagree with me on other things, things that They've been able to accept things that I've played to them that they didn't accept when I said it to them. And that's the beauty of art, because even to listen to music, we have to come together to do it. Right? If I have a groove, everybody's in the audience, they're from all different places. If I have a groove and they all clap on the beat, they're not clapping as Republicans, Democrats, Catholics.
Well, they might be.
They might be, but my point is,
you know you're wrong for that.
I have a song called if you clap on the one, if you can't clap on the 2 and the 4, don't criticize me.
but 1 and 3's all right. We need them too.
No, I don't need them. I mean like that, full of piss and vinegar.
Well, I hear it.
Well,
my point is a good group puts us on the same page for a moment, not forever. We'll probably leave the room and some of us will argue again. But for a moment, we're all together. And while we're all together, there's a lot of good that can be done. That's the point that I'm making. Because if we don't play music, we're less likely to be on the same page. And we hear all the noise of people talking about everything all the time, but we don't talk with the groove, meaning we don't talk cohesively. We don't communicate cohesively. And music can create that cohesiveness. Even if we walk away and we're Muslim, Christian, atheist, right? For a minute, music brings us together. And that's the reason that we go listen to music, because it brings us together. And that togetherness is a powerful tool. And I think it's important, especially at this time, for us to use that ability to bring people together and our ability to make people listen, to teach them something while they're doing it.
It's funny you say that. If like, oh no, Jefferson, please.
Well, we're coming up on an hour, and I appreciate all these comments, and I'm very sort of humbled in a way to be able to listen. And here I am. I'm a white privileged guy. I grew up in Chevy Chase and went to prep school and all that. And
but I like your hat.
Thank you, Topi from.
Yeah. Okay, baby.
And we look back on our families, and we all have 8 great grandparents and 16 great, but one of my family lines was a senator from Louisiana in the 1890s, and they had sugar plantations down in Southwest Louisiana. And
White gold.
As you learn and listen and try to understand things, you find out how bad that really was. As you were all saying, it was a chapter in time. Boy, our family, at least one branch, had slaves, and it was bad. They worked from can't to can't, can't see to can't see. Then in this climate, where hopefully there is more conversation about these things, and I'm reading Isabel Wilkerson's book, The Warmth of Other Suns, and somebody of color was lynched or burned alive every 4 days from 1890 to 1930 or something. And it is brutal. And so, for white people, we were kind of in on it, a terrorism that was as bad as the Taliban or anything that we can imagine. And so, when I was thinking about, having you all in this conversation, it's to try to figure out how do other people hear that and get that and understand it. And the things that you've said have been really important and meaningful. And I hope that we can, do more to, have people like me listening and understanding, and hopefully music can help with that. I mean, it's just quite a time that we're in, and I'm putting my money on music.
Oh man, I always bet on the music, right? But I want to say something to you, Jefferson. Check this out, man. This is silly, but I think it's worth saying. Like, I went to prep school, I went to Ivy League college. Like, and this is the little bit I'll say is, when I was growing up, I was this when I was 6 or 7 years old. I talked like this. I wasn't much smaller than I am now, and I'd go play in Atlanta, Georgia, out in the back, and the kids would look around, in the neighborhood, and they'd be like, Lionel, ain't no white folks around. Ain't no white folks around, man. White boy, tell me, why you got to talk like that? And I said, talk like what? Talk like that. And then, can't you just talk normal like us? And I said, yeah, I could talk normal like you, but I would be acting, right? And the reason I say that is that it doesn't matter your perspective or where you come from, or even the interpretation of where you come from, right? I got long dreads, but I'm pretty sure I'm not Jamaican, but that doesn't mean that I can't feel things that are outside of my quote unquote purview. And I think that's what music really does. Like whether it's the libretto and the beautiful pentameter or whatever, we're using in the lyric and the spell that casts. And hopefully that spell dispels words that hurt people like bitch and nigga and all this kind of stuff that hurts people, dispels their meaning, takes away their weight, right? Or the waveform. I think we all have this inherent ability, if we have empathy, and not everybody has empathy, right? But if we have empathy, we can hear intent and we can hear a storyline and then have just this one little chance for understanding. And if not understanding, maybe amnesty. And to me, that's really the highest call, right? Like as a griot to tell the story so we don't forget, as a musician to create the waveforms so that we don't forget, as a historian and a therapist to take those waveforms and bathe the person so that they can actually learn from it, right? Like, and I don't think that that's based on a color line or an experience line. I think that's a human being thing. Right. Like, and that's the race we are. We're humans, right? And I'm very touched by each of you brilliant humans who's willing to be vulnerable in front of people talking about the things we love, because that is the same opening. The intent of this is the same opening as a beautiful song. Mm-hmm. And the song we're singing here together, I think, is moving me. And I'm hoping it will move everyone around us, just like when we hear 7 Shots in the Back. These are important things, I think, and I don't think that the walls should be high. And, we can learn all we want, but who we are right now is beautiful. And that is hope for the universe. You know what I mean? That's, white gold is great, but like this is alchemy. The shit of the world around us is being turned to gold right now in this.
My story is perhaps the opposite of yours in that I grew up in apartheid. And then I went up north to school in Boston. And as soon as I got there, they sent me to speech class. And wow. And then I ended up trying to talk proper, as we Black folks call it, And I'm so glad I grew into.
What you mean by that?
Yeah, I'm so glad. Well, you know how it is.
Yes, ma'am.
But I'm so glad there was a time when we didn't appreciate our Blackness. And thankfully, thankfully, I was saved. And music had a lot to do with that, And artists like, for example, just like Nina Simone took me to Bessie Smith. And yeah. And so did the Swan Silvertones. So, I have to know my history musically. Perhaps above all else, that's what shaped me as a person, is the music.
It's the same with me. For me and my brothers grew up, we were children playing in nightclubs. I mean, when Victor was in kindergarten, I was 8 years old. Victor was 3, older 3 brothers, 11, 12, and 13. We were playing nightclubs. We come home, have to take a nap, and go make these people dance. But at a very young age, we learned how much music brought people together. And then we were fortunate enough in 1972, we opened for Curtis Mayfield. And we got a chance to see up close how Curtis didn't even have to play loud. He was such a wordsmith that he could we could watch him show people with music exactly what the ghetto was like. You listen to the lyrics, Freddie's Dead, you hear the mindset of a pusher. I mean, you hear the mindset of a drug addict. You listen to
low.
Yeah, you listen to him. Listen to him sing Superfly. You learn the mindset of a pusher. Hard to understand, but a hell of a man. This man of the slum had a mind, wasn't dumb. Can't be like the rest, was the most he'll confess. But his time's running short and there's no happiness. Superfly, right?
You're
Music.
talking about Enron, right?
I'm saying that music first brings people together, which is that's the first goal that's overcome. It brings people together and then gives you an opportunity to educate them, inspire them. You could also anger them too. You can make things worse with music, but you have an opportunity not to. In the civil rights movement, they got through it not by chanting "We shall overcome." They got through it by singing "We shall overcome," because music helps you endure too. It helps you endure the right way. Music is life. Music is life as it should be. Music is the intelligent use of space that takes things that aren't related and turns them into something worthwhile, because in the spaces you put something intelligent. If it's not intelligent, it's just a pile of notes. This is not the national anthem. This is not the national anthem until you use notes, until you use space intelligently. And what it takes to make music is the same thing it takes to talk to somebody that doesn't think like you. Except in music, you can do it with rhythm, drop, cough. In talking to somebody that doesn't think like you do it with respect. Respect makes people that don't think alike, puts them in a relationship that creates the potential for something good to come out of it. Because even at the end of it, if neither one of you change at all, if you've put a little bit more respect in the world than there was before there was a conversation, you've made the world a little bit better. So there's a lot to learn. There's a lot to learn from music besides just music theory and, rhythms and tensions and chord structures. The things that make music beautiful is the things that make the world beautiful. And that's what I'm trying to do on the instrument and off, trying to bring people together and trying to bring them together and inspire them with the things that I know that I feel is worthwhile for everybody.
Certainly the things that I've learned are the most important things in music are listening. And as Joseph explains in other talks that I've heard, respect, and hopefully whoever we is,
All of us.
can use that music to help the community of humans out there, not all of whom see things quite the same way.
Yeah, and not all, I'm sorry not to jump in, music, not all music is done with notes, right? I mean, we do it with notes here, but sometimes you're making music with the person who you respect, who both of you are growing because you're both listening to each other, not because you're agreeing with each other, but just because you're listening to each other and growing the respect, because it doesn't take agreement for things to be better. It just takes respect of each other. And too many of us are waiting for people to agree, and that's not even really realistic. The cells in your toenails don't agree with the cells in your skin. You know what I mean? They have total different requirements, but they both work for the same purpose. So people need to find that respect for each other the same way we make a kick drum and a violin be part of the same production. We need to be able to make a Democrat and a Republican or an atheist and a religious person find context so we can grow, so we can come together and be better than we are now.
Amnesty, man. Amnesty.
Well, cool. Well, anybody have any final thoughts? I mean, I think we could talk for a long time.
Somebody else needs to say something.
I know Ms. Gaye has some things she's got to go do, but anybody want to have any other things you want to talk about, mention?
Well, I just want to say thank you, really.
Absolutely.
For this enlightening group of brilliant humans who all speak the same heart with a different language, to be able to come together and really just fellowship on our love of this sometimes despicable human race that we will all wish to help. And it's really beautiful that that you brought us here together to really be inspired by you and each other. And I can't wait to hear what comes out of it. I can't wait to hear the next notes, because this is a beautiful song we're singing here, Jefferson. Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Let me just say that Jeff is quite a Renaissance man, and I appreciate what he does. and I appreciate his efforts to find heaven everywhere.
Amen.
And he and his wife, Julie, have taken on a lot of tasks that have really moved me. I just read about how you did the work to get Archie Edwards Barbershop a nonprofit and stuff like that that Jeff does. And Archie Edwards Barbershop is just a place that has kept Piedmont blues alive. And Jeff made that happen.
Nice.
Hey, so just thank you. And don't stop doing what you're doing, dude. I got on him for calling himself a dude. It just sounds so, non-descriptive, Jeff.
Somebody gave me,
Dude, it's okay.
It's okay, dude.
Chief Spiritual Dude. Somebody gave me the name. I decided to run with it.
Okay, all right, all
Um,
right. I like spiritual guide. Thank you.
all right.
You're doing a great thing, Jefferson.
Oh,
Yeah.
thanks. I think music is doing it. Next up is got to save this democracy, or a lot of these other conversations just go down. And I think hopefully the next conversation I'm gonna have is going to be about protest songs and intentional songs. And if there's a time that we needed them, that we need musicians to step up, and as Joseph says, to set the tone and determine the future. This is it, man. This is our chance. And so hopefully this conversation will help. Everything that we're doing will help. And we're going to maybe try to do some concerts for democracy coming up soon. And let's just keep
I'm
it.
in.
Yeah, count me in.
I'm in.
Love to.
I'm already doing for a couple of people running for office fundraisers, and that's the nature of the beast. That in Virginia, anyway. Yeah.
What part of Virginia?
I live in a little town called Fredericksburg. It's midway between Washington and Richmond.
I lived 18 years in Newport News.
Oh, okay. All right. I got friends in Newport News. Yeah, I got friends in low places. Right.
I graduated from Denby High School in 1979.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And at any rate, oh God knows I do a lot of giglets. And Jeff.
Wait, did you just call it a giglet?
Yeah, that's where if you're lucky, you get walk around money.
That sounds like something you do on a chitlin circuit.
I don't know. There's all kinds of circuit. All I know is that I got 14 giglets this month. No, I take that back. One is paying. And I do half lit and talking smack. Yeah, you know what maybe y'all don't know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I do.
Okay, all right, yeah. But I got a giglet. I have a real gig this evening, so that's good. I'm doing a little live concert. But I do workshops too. And I'm just keeping my little slice of the blues alive. Yeah.
All right.
And let's make sure Jefferson, you're going to make sure we have each other's information so we can stay in touch.
Yeah, sure thing. I'm just going to say thank you to everybody, and really appreciate it. Thank you to people out there listening. Hopefully
Listen to my song for Kaepernick.
Yeah, number 7.
My baby boy, yes.
And, we'll just keep trying to make the world a better place through music. Seems like a good thing to try to do.
Yes,
Right.
indeed.
Okay, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful to meet you all. Thank you.
Shake it.
Keep hope alive. Keep music alive.